Hey guys, it's Alex Burtson, the Manic Scholar, back again with another video. This one is another Michael chart, and today the Michael chart we're looking at is that of XXXTENTACION, or who is also known as Jose Onfroy. That's his birth name, but his stage name is XXXTENTACION or X. Um, X is he was a rapper, musician, singer. Um, he uh, he died at age 20. He got shot, murdered, and he had a pretty intense life. But he got pretty famous pretty quick. Um, so he was really big in the rap scene and like alternative music and stuff like that. Um, so we're gonna be looking at his Michael chart, and if you don't know what Michael Teachings is, it's a channel body of knowledge that talks about our soul's characteristics that stay the same for all of our lives, as well as overleaves that we take on, which are different characteristics that we have for each life, and talks about our soul's progression through soul ages, which are different perspectives that we take on as we're growing and evolving um, throughout our incarnations. So I'm going to go into the details of his chart. We talk about his essence and his overleaves. The essence part, the stuff on the left side of the screen, this is the stuff that stays the same for his whole cycle. This is going to be the same configuration for his whole reincarnational cycle. This is going to stay the same. And the overleaves are characteristics that he takes on for this life um, only. So this is particular to when he was XXX Tentacion. So let's get into each of his essence characteristics. So his role is a priest. So in all his lives on Earth, he's going to have the same role, priest. It's on the inspiration axis. It's the cardinal inspiration axis rule. So it's really focused on seeking the higher good. It wants to inspire people towards uh, growth and spiritual growth and the evolution of society. Um, so they have a big part in terms of addressing the world. They want to address groups. Other priests are like Martin Luther King Jr. and Barack Obama. Um, so he's doing his priest role. You can see in some of his videos, like if you watch Sad, just the way that he portrays everything and the way he's talking, it really fits with the priest role very well. He's got some secondaries of other things. So he has an essence twin that's a scholar. When he was alive, his essence twin was also alive. So he didn't have so much of the scholar characteristics as he usually would if his essence twin was discarnate when he was alive. So the next most strong characteristic from his essence is the sage cadence position that he has, which is about communication. It's on the expression axis, the cardinal expression, so it addresses groups also. It's about communicating insight and wisdom, but they're the natural communicators. So, and it's on the expression axis, so there's some creativity element there. So that mixes pretty well with what he does as a rapper, singer. Sage fits with that really well, naturally. He's got the cadence server, so there's a little bit of this nurturing, caring, warm quality to him that's there from the server. His task companion is an artisan, which is a common choice. This is a soul that helps you on the other side with your tasks, and it's an artisan, so it brings a little bit more creativity into things to have that influence. He's in Cadre 4, Entity 7, which is the same entity as Kanye West. I'm also in this entity, so it's pretty cool to see that he's in my entity. Um, and Alan Moore is also in this entity. The guy who wrote Watchmen and V for Vendetta. His orientation is love, so he's focused on the emotional aspects of things as opposed to the more physical, energetic, or the truth, intellectual plane of things. His focus is learning about emotions and feelings and love. His male-female energy balance, he's 38 male, 62 female. So he's going to be more focused on being and creating an environmental from his energy. It's more of a creative process instead of moving into action. It kind of creates an environment. So that brings in some creativity, for sure. His frequency is pretty high at 80. Um, so he's going to move through experiences fairly quickly. He's going to have a more light, airy kind of energy about him because the frequency is high. But yeah, he's going to have a lot more active life than people who have a lower frequency. He's going to speed through things really quick. His previous cycles is 10, which is very common for what I see from channel charts, but the average previous cycles on the planet is 4. Jesus had 19 previous cycles, which is the most we've known, and Hitler had 7. So it kind of gives you a context of where he's at. So previous cycles is how many planets he's lived on before Earth, and completed all the different soul ages and did the whole cycle. So now we look at his global job and community responsibility. His protection is the global job, and resolve is the community responsibility. Um, it's a warrior block, warrior rogue, king column, global job and community responsibility. So everything here is really heavy on the action axis. So this is going to make him super productive. It can also bring some aggressive tendencies there. With naturally with that being the most warrior global job as being double warrior. And you can see there was some aggression in terms of the kinds of things he did in his life. He's physically attacked several people, and grew up around a lot of violence too. But you can also see that the productivity is really big, because he was really successful making a lot of music in the short time he was alive, and working on things. So you can see the action axis stuff coming from his global job and community responsibility, factoring into his personality quite a bit, which you don't see in his essence from this configuration. There's nothing action axis oriented, no warrior or king in there. But because he's warrior king, there is some action stuff going on there. So that's his essence. Everything here stays the same for his whole cycle on Earth. Now we'll talk about his overleaves, which is the characteristics he has for this life. He's in the young soul age, level 4. So we'll look at the soul age here, so you get a little timeline idea of everything. So he's in young level 4, which is exactly right in the middle of the reincarnational cycle and the different soul ages you go through while you're incarnating on planet Earth. So his focus right now is achievement. It's focused on worldly success. That's what the young soul is about. So it's all about his own achievement, how much he can achieve in life in the outer world is the main focus at this time for him. He's right in the middle of it, so he's comfortable with it at this point. He's really just working through that soul age right now, and achievement is the focus. So it makes a lot of sense why he was able to be so successful with this kind of having striving push towards achievement. Makes sense. So yeah, he's a young priest. So this is an example of what a priest could look like in the young soul age. Is what he ended up doing. So that's the soul age. After young soul, there's mature and old before he finishes his cycle. Mature soul ages focus on relationships in the inner world, so it's going to be a lot different than what he's experienced so far in this cycle, which is more of an outer external push so far with the first three soul ages. Once he's done with the young soul age, he's going to go more into the inner world and be more introspective, um, which comes later. Um, but for now, he's gonna have several lives more in the young soul age before he moves on. So that's the soul age. His goal is flow. So what that means is when you have the goal of flow, you're kind of getting a boost of support in this life. Um, you'll be supported with food, shelter, clothing, all the things you need to survive usually, but you have to learn how to let go and go with the flow. Basically, is what the experience is instead of trying to control everything. You have the goal of flow usually when you've had pretty intense past lives, and this life you kind of get a little break. It's kind of like a vacation life in a sense. Um, so he's being supported in that way through flow. His attitude is cynic, which is looking at things in the ways that they don't work. It's having a cynical attitude. Um, Usually likes to take the opposing viewpoint on things, um, to kind of counteract whatever anybody else is saying. Always taking the opposing viewpoint is what the cynic is about. His mode is observation, which is the neutral mode. So the way he releases his energy is neutrally, and he's in a state of observation, observing his surroundings, taking in information. Um, Both the goal flow and the mode of observation are on the neutral axis, so it aligns with the scholar a little bit. So there's a little bit of scholar characteristics there going on with that. And the cynic is on the action axis. You can see it's this pink color, or it's like a shade of red, so it's on the action axis. His centering, he's moving and intellectual. It's pretty rare to see moving first, um, but this makes him, very action oriented to be in the moving center first. But basically, he jumps into action, uh, and then filters what his experience through what he was feeling in movement into his intellect. And that's kind of the main way he functions through his centering. He has the obstacle of greed, which is basically a feeling of lack inside, maybe a lack of love, but it feels like there's a hole inside, and you try to fill it up with different things, experiences, relationships, love, different things, food, money, sex, attention, all the stuff like that to fill up that hole. So it gives you a big appetite to have greed. And martyrdom makes you feel like you're unworthy, um, and you're just constantly martyred in certain situations. So that's another obstacle that he might have to overcome. These vary in intensity with each person, um, but they just give us something to that we have to uh, learn to overcome. It makes life a little bit more challenging. So his body types, he's Mercurial and Saturnian. The Mercurial is good for communication, and since he was a rapper, singer, makes sense as that being his first body type. And then he has Saturnian as a secondary, which is made for leadership. Um, and you can see that he had kind of a leading um, effect on people. The way he approached music in a new way, um, so that the leadership fits there. He's in the quadrant of love, which is different. It's based on the role you take in society in a group setting. He's the one that will kind of function like a server does. That's what the love is like. Um, so he's not doing the knowledge positioning. He's not doing power where he's in control. He's more providing the feeling of love in a group setting. His needs are power, exchange, and adventure. So power is to be in a position of authority and control. Exchange is communicating with other people one on one, having a back and forth exchange of ideas or energies or touch or whatever it is. But it's more of a one on one kind of connection that he needs. And then the need of adventure is to have adventure in your life, essentially. So that's everything on his chart. Um, you can see there's some action access stuff going on here with his global job and community responsibility. The fact that he's a young soul, which is very action oriented. He's got cynic attitude, moving centered. So that stuff is really big. He also has some uh, of the cardinal expression axis stuff with the sage cadence position, the greed obstacle, and the body type mercurial. So the sage characteristics are there a little bit, but his primary role is priest. So the inspiration axis stuff is his main focus. So he's a mix of things. You know, he's got priest, scholar, sage, and server. Um, inspiration axis, expression axis, and neutral axis in his essence. But then he has some action axis stuff going on with his moving centered young soul age, and his warrior king global job and community responsibility. So yeah, he was pretty intense, action oriented, got a lot done. Makes sense with all that the red in his chart. But he's definitely trying to inspire others through being a priest. But he's definitely an example of a young soul who's really focused on outer success, worldly success. So that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that's his chart. I'm going to do some more charts coming up. I have a good backlog of different charts that I haven't shared with the public yet. So so stay tuned for more of that. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Manic Scholar out.